Good morning. We are on the record in case number 2021-00340, the electronic investigation into the financial and operating capacity of Rattlesnake Ridge Water District. My name is Amy Cubbage, and I am Vice Chair of the Public Service Commission, and I will be presiding today. Joining me today is Commissioner Mary Ann Butler remotely. Chairman Kent Chandler will review the hearing as part of the record in consideration of this matter. At this time, I would normally caution attendees to set your cell phones to silent mode or turn them off, which is still preferred. But due to the state of emergency in Kentucky, the Commission is hosting this hearing via video conference. Since this is still a learning experience for all of us, here's a few suggestions. In addition to the normal courtesies we just discussed regarding cell phones, please do the following to ensure that we have a nice, clear record. Mute your microphone if you're not speaking. Attorneys, when interjecting, please state your name so that the record is clear. If you're using a phone for the audio and a computer for the video, please turn off the computer audio so there's no feedback. If you are in a room with several people on their own computers, turn off the audio for all but one computer, or otherwise there'll be that same feedback issue. If another participant is in a nearby office, please close the door between. If you need to check your microphone setting, the GoToMeeting software platform has a little gear at the top, and if you click on that, there's a pull-down menu for settings, and you can check your microphone. If you're using headphones, wired are preferred because wireless devices have a tendency to lose power depending on the length of this hearing. Keep chargers nearby so you don't lose power. And please alert the Commission if you are experiencing a technology failure that prevents your participation. Attorneys should have received a number from staff to contact, and you can use that. Again, the hearing today is the purpose for taking evidence on the utility's sustained excess water loss and concerns about financial capacity. At this time, we'll have the entry of appearance of counsel. I will also request that each party's counsel identify the witnesses that they brought to the hearing at this time. First, for the applicant.
Derek Willis on behalf of Rattlesnake Ridge Water District, and with me I have Assistant Manager David Gifford, Board Member Mike Copley, Steve Eisen, Jason Carroll, Randy Stegall, Chairman Bill Gilbert, and Engineer Riley Sumner. And if I could, anyone who was on the camera in the background, if you could scoot to the side, they only want one person visible at one time.
And for Commission staff.
Brittany Koenig and Mariah Tussey for the Commission.
Thank you. I've been advised that public notice has been given and filed into the record. Is that correct?
It is correct.
Okay. And I believe, just for the record, that the notice ran on December 10th, 2021 and was filed on December 17th, 2021. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Thanks. Are there any outstanding motions?
Your Honor, there are not any outstanding motions. However, we would ask that PSC Exhibit 1, a map of the system, be entered at this time so that both parties could use that exhibit.
Any objection, Mr. Willis?
No.
That can be entered. Do you have that in electronic format we can put up on the screen when necessary?
Yes. Yes,
Great.
ma'am.
Thanks. Anyone wishing to provide public comments may do so by following the instructions located on our website at psc.ky.gov. Let the record show that instructions and the link to provide oral public comments has been posted on the website for the past day. Has anyone signed up to provide public comment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Comments can always be submitted on the website using the instructions at psc.ky.gov. If anyone does wish to provide written comments, please include your name, address, and the case number, which again was 2021-340. I think we're ready to move into the meat of the hearing. Mr. Willis, at this time you may call your first witness.
I call David Gifford.
Okay. Is Mr. Gifford, there he is. Mr. Gifford, could you please raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Okay. Please state your name and address for the record.
David Gifford. My home address, so where you need,
You can give the business address, that's fine.
it's 5302 South Highway 7, Grayson, Kentucky.
Okay, Mr. Willis, you may ask your questions.
Thank you. Please state your name.
David Gifford,
And Mr. Gifford, what is your position with Rattlesnake Ridge Water District?
Assistant Manager,
How long have you worked with the Water District?
26 years.
And how long have you held the title of Assistant Manager?
For 3 years,
Okay. As Assistant Manager, what are your day-to-day job duties?
just over the operations out in the field, everything is done out in the field. Basically, it's over, more or less just all the operations out in the field.
Okay, who's the current manager?
Willis Gilbert,
And is Mr. Gilbert here today?
no, he is not.
So it's my understanding that primarily your testimony will be geared toward water loss and operations, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And who's primarily responsible for the financials?
That's the manager, Willis Gilbert.
And is he scheduled to retire?
Yes, he is.
When does he intend to retire?
February 1st will be his last day.
And is he currently off work?
Yes, he's off on vacation.
Okay. And during this transition period where Mr. Gilbert is retiring, is the district kind of bifurcating the duties as far as operations and financials go?
Yeah, we're trying to take over his part after February 1st, I'll be taking over that job.
Okay. And, okay, first of all, were you assistant manager or employed with the water district when there was a prior case, which was 2019-41?
Yes, I was employed.
And was that with regard to water loss?
Yes.
At the time of that case, what was the district's water loss?
It was up probably, I have to look back, probably 50-60%.
After the directives from the commission, what steps did the water district take to reduce water loss?
We've actually hired two extra employees to work on water loss, and they've really done good. We fixed, in the last 4 or 5 months, we fixed probably over 100 leaks.
What is the district's current water loss?
It's in the 40s. I'd have to look. It's ranging in the 40s.
Okay. And so the two new employees, what are their job duties?
They actually go out and listen to valves and find leaks. And one of them is actually an operator, and he can fix the leak when they find it. And they do other day-to-day operations too.
Okay, so after the 19-41 case, the water district did address water loss.
Yes, we work on it every day. I mean, that's our number one priority.
And one of the directives from the commission was that there be a testing schedule for all meters that were 10 years old or older. Did the water district undertake that?
Yeah, what it was, we started buying new meters put in, and that's the reason we quit testing. We were just buying all new ones put in because we're changing over to the IPRO meter. And, which now we're having trouble getting the meters, and I did have some more testing. But that's the reason we quit testing, because we were just doing away with them and buying new ones, putting them in.
Okay. Would you say that the water district could have done a better job of communicating that to the commission?
We could have. And that's probably my fault that I didn't do that.
But it's not as if you completely denied the commission's directive.
No, I did not.
And when did the water district hire these two new employees?
6 months ago, maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay, if I said it was just a matter of weeks or months after the commission's directives, Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
In addition to adding 2 employees to address water loss, what other measures did the district undertake?
Well, we're going out and checking a lot of the, meters that's non-active and making sure people's not stealing water. Looking along for zero reads, where the meter is actually reading zero, we go back out and check that, make sure we're not losing water there on the meters. And, going out and listening to valves, trying to find our leaks.
Okay.
And we've actually put on social media, if anybody sees any water that's not normal, to notify us. We'll check it out that way too.
Okay. And as the district undergoes this transition, do you intend to use more resources such as social media, announcements, and internet?
Yes, I do.
And does that appear to help address water?
Yeah, it does. We had several reported come in. We took care of those and fixed them.
Okay, you mentioned water theft. Does the district have a policy regarding water theft?
Yes, we do.
And if you suspect water theft, what do you first do?
We go to the meter and see if they are stealing. If they are, we usually take the regulator out and leave the meter in and then lock it out again. That way, if they do steal again, we've got an accurate account of it because it's still going through the meter. And for doing that, we have Doug Gill set her up, and I'll go to the county attorney.
So if you substantiate water loss, you do take it to prosecution?
Yes,
To the prosecutor? Does the district experience much water loss or water theft rather?
not a whole lot. We don't have a great lot of it, but we do have some.
And let's discuss fire department usage. Does the water district have a tariff in place regarding fire departments?
Yes, we do.
And what is the policy? What is the
Our departments are supposed to report to us every month on if they've used any water or if not. And we have reached out to all of them again, actually recently, and they're going to report back to us, but in the past, they have not.
So we had an informal conference in this matter last month, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
And after discussing this with the commission and receiving some guidance and some suggestions from the commission staff, did you immediately take steps to address that?
Yes, we got a hold of the fire departments, and they said they would send us a thing at the end of every month stating how much water they've used, or if any. But they would, if there's none, they would still send us a statement at the end of the month.
And after the 19-41 case, you did continue to send the documentation forms to the fire departments, correct?
You know, we don't send them actually to them, they just send them to us. They've got a form we send to us.
And they typically ignore.
They haven't done it, but I think they will now. We contact them, and I think they will give it to us this month.
And are you looking into the tariffs and trying to find ways to amend those to best improve that policy?
Yes, we have. And I think in our tariffs, it says we can actually fine the fire department, and I don't think they were aware of that. So I think they will start sending us the paperwork at the end of the month.
So as we transition forward, the district will do a better job of taking
Yes.
care of that. So let's talk about fire loss, fire department usage a little more. Tell us about the geographic area that we live in and that you work in.
It's rough terrain. I mean, we've got 400 miles of water line. And we've got several different pressure zones. We've got 200 PSI in some places and 50 in others. And it's just rough terrain, a lot of rock, up the hills, down hills, up these hollers. And it's just tough getting water up some of these places for the public.
Okay, so we'll get back to the train in a little while. How does that affect the district's ability to calculate or even find water? Or fire department usage?
For fire department,
Yes.
well, I'm not sure what you're saying.
Okay, we're in a very rural area
Yes.
with water district. So you would basically have to witness
Them,
them in person putting out a fire to determine if they use.
right, I would.
Do you think the fact that fire departments have not followed up with the district, that has contributed to the unaccounted water?
It has kind of some of it, I'm sure.
Do you have any way of knowing how much?
I have no way of knowing. Unless we actually catch it in the act, you know. And, we have, I'm sure, a lot of times, if a water plant calls, say we've got a tank dropping, we think we've got a leak, and then all once it quits, then we know it's fire department somewhere pulling off of us. But it's hard to find out which one it is. And we have tried. But I think they will do a better job of it.
And going back to the terrain, does that contribute to causing lines to break?
Yes, it does. We're in one of the worst terrains there is for water lines. A lot of limestone, a lot of pressure changes, and it's just, it's a bad terrain.
And does that cause the pipe to move and buckle in
It does.
different places? And when the main lines were installed, what type of material did the district use?
We got PVC pipe. Now our service lines are, the old ones are polybutylene.
Okay. I'm not familiar with polybutylene, but could you tell the commission what those are and what challenges that creates?
It was actually supposedly the best pipe at that time when we used it. It's a blue service tubing, 250 PSI rating, and it deteriorates over time underground. And we're actually in a project to replace all those. But that's where a lot of our leaks are at. These service lines are blowing out everywhere. And it's hard to find them unless the customer loses pressure but we've been out trying to find them. Usually the customer will call and say we're low on pressure, we can go check it out that way. Sometimes we can hear it on a valve at nighttime. It's just tough. We've got so many out there and it's spraying. A lot of times it won't come up, the leak will go down, it won't surface.
Okay, so we discussed the difficulty and the challenges with the polybutylene. What steps will the district take to improve on water loss regarding that type of material?
Well, they don't even make that tubing anymore. But we use a different tubing now, and actually on this next project, we're replacing all those old service lines. And I think that'll help us tremendously. Plus, we're in a meter project to replace all our meters. And actually put in zone meters where we can tell how much water is going in a certain area. And we can read those meters every morning. We know if it's up or down, which way our water's going.
Okay, let's move on to the changes in addition to the change in management that the district is getting ready to undergo. Is there a project set in motion right now for the water district?
Or,
The Phase 12
yes,
project?
yes.
Can you please explain to the commission and all the other attendees what the Phase 12 project consists of?
Mostly, what I talked about, it's, want to replace all of our service lines, our old service lines. Put in, all of our, zone meters where we can tell how much water is going in a different area, which will help us tremendously. And, there's a little bit of main line going in, pick up some extra customers. It's mainly for water loss. And we got this, we're gonna get new meters too, and, that'll help tremendously. I know our meters are slow, the old ones, and these new iPearl meters, there's a drop of water goes to them, they'll pick it up.
Okay. So in addition to the 2 employees added shortly after the 41 case was completed, the district was almost immediately ready to start this Phase 12 project. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, when did you expect, or did the district expect, if you know, the Phase 12 project?
Well, we was hoping to bid it last year, but we got held up on some state funding and stuff. And I think we actually just got the okay maybe a couple weeks ago, well, I'd say, which engineer can tell us more about that, but I think we're getting ready to bid sometime real soon. Maybe this month or first next month.
So within 1 year after the 1941 case, did you expect the Phase 12 project to either be completed or be in progress?
Yeah, I would have thought we would have been pretty well done, but no, it may not have been finished, but we would have had a lot of it done.
Okay, so you expected it to have been progressing all the way through 2020.
Yes,
But it hasn't even been bid yet, correct?
correct.
And what were some of the problems that caused the bidding process and everything else to be delayed?
We got held up from the state, and I'm sure COVID had a lot to do with it. And we just couldn't get our funding in line, couldn't get the okay to go ahead and do it.
So, I hate to blame everything on COVID, but COVID did have a great impact on the Phase 12 project.
It had a great impact. It had an impact on us, on the employees.
And
And then we had the ice storm and the flood.
so there have been a lot of challenges since COVID and other factors beyond the district's control.
Yes,
And you stated that you expect the project just to begin bidding in the next few months or weeks?
yes,
Are there already plans drawn for this Phase 12 project?
yes, everything's already drawn in line.
And is there in fact an engineer that has been working tremendous amount of hours, planning, mapping, doing all
Yes,
those things?
Mr Sumner, he's got everything done, we're just waiting for the okay to say bid. And I think he's got that, I'm quite sure, real close.
Okay, and did the district just receive some substantial grants?
Yes, we did.
And can you explain that to the commission?
We received I'm not sure what was, 500,000 grant. Can't remember what it is now. We got the check over there.
You can't ask anybody.
I'm trying to look at our checks over there.
Oh, okay. You actually have the large check.
Yeah, we got the large checks here.
And in addition to 500,000, was there another $1 million
$1
granted?
million, yes. And then we've got a $93,000 grant.
Okay, so almost 1.6 million,
Yes,
give or take. So will this be used to fund the Phase 12, or is this something you can use in addition to the Phase 12 project?
it's used on the Phase 12 project, and some of it we'll use for the radio. We're trying to get a radio system where we can read all of our meters in one day. And that's the only way we can actually get an accurate reading on water loss. You know, we take what the plant's making per day, but then we're over like a 15-day period reading meters. So it takes two guys close to that to read one of the meters, so they're having to drive to them.
Okay,
We're trying to get it where we can read it all in one day through the towers.
okay, so the way you're doing it now, there's a difficulty because there's a delay in determining water production or output versus water usage.
Correct. It's hard to distinguish, and because we're taking 15 days to read, and he's telling me, he's giving me a reading every day from the plant, how much he puts out. And it's hard to compare that, to get a true reading of usage.
So the effect of that could be, it could reflect that more water is being produced than running through the meters.
Right.
And if the water doesn't run through the meter, is that automatically considered water loss?
Right. And our zone meters will help us on this. So we can look at one of our zone meters and where the boys is red, and we can compare that meter reading to the zone meter, and we'll know what area is using the most water.
Okay, what does a zone meter do?
It's just a big meter in the main line, tells how much water is going to that area. For instance, like, I'm sure they don't, Willard area, all that, coming up from Mayview Tank, we'll put a zone meter there, it'll tell us how much water is going that way every day. And then we can compare that to our customers in that area and see what the water loss is.
Okay, so you can actually isolate where the water loss
Yes.
is occurring.
We can isolate the areas.
And if you isolate where the water loss is occurring, what steps do you take at that time to improve it?
Send the guys out there and start listening to the valves. We've got a portable flow meter. We can actually put it on the line, and we can tell how much water is going through that line. Purchase that. It'll tell us how much, it just straps on the main line. It'll tell us how much water is going through there that time.
Okay, is that something that the district purchased after the 2019 41Ks, listening devices?
I'm pretty sure it is. I can't remember the exact date. I'm pretty sure it is.
And that was purchased to address water loss?
Yes, it was purchased to address water loss.
Okay, and you mentioned service lines through the Phase 12 project. What benefit will the district have for water loss if the service lines are replaced?
I think it covered the water loss really a lot. I mean, we don't have, especially on some of the meters that's not active. We've got a leak on that meter. We don't know because the customer's not using that meter. And that's our biggest problem. And because they'll never call in flow pressure or nothing, it's just one we have to find. But we're actually just physically walking, or somebody would have to see it. And we walk some of the lines trying to find those.
Okay, and what benefit will the district have by, well, first let me ask you this, how much main line do you anticipate will be replaced in the Phase 12 project?
We're not replacing any of the main lines, just all service.
Okay, all service. In your opinion, in your experience, well, let me ask you this, before you were assistant manager, what was your job title?
Operator, just out in the field, I do the electric work too, all the electric.
So you've worn many hats with the district.
Yes.
And as the future manager, do you believe that your experience will allow you to help?
I think it'll be a big turnaround. We're going to focus hard on the water loss, and I think it'll be a different place, I really do.
What do you believe the greatest hurdle is for the water district at this time, or at least leading up to the 19-41Ks?
I think communication was a lot of our problem. You know, some of the stuff I probably thought the manager was doing, he wasn't done. He probably thought I was doing some of it, and I wasn't doing it. I think we had a communication problem there. And, like I said, we got all the guys was here are pretty well gone. So we got a lot of new guys, really good bunch of guys, and they want to work, they want to help, they want to find these water leaks. And
Is there kind of a change in morale?
change morale. I think it'll be a total different place.
What steps do you think, or what other steps will you take to ensure that you reduce water loss and better communicate with the commission?
I'll send every report that they need, and say if they've got any problem, I want them to contact me directly. That way I know what's going on, which they have my email, and I'll send them everything we're done. I mean, every change we make, I'll send it to them. So it's something that I probably have not been done.
Because you didn't know.
I didn't know, I mean,
So all of the reports that it sort of looks like the district ignored the commission by not turning in the reports, was it ignoring the commission or just failing to file those?
they just fell in file them. Some of them I didn't know I was even supposed to file. I think I'm caught up on them now, hopefully.
Other than this, let's talk about out in the field or any other problems the district has. What do you think the largest problem that causes water loss would be?
It's definitely our service lines is the worst. I mean, no doubt that's our worst water loss. I mean, it'll leak, service line in some of our areas leak 40,000 a night easy. And that's our biggest water loss. And I'm sure we've got a bunch of them out there right now leaking. We're fixing them every day.
You can, in the district supplemental response that was filed in this case, You stated that the employees have, since the 1941 case, they have fixed approximately 160 leaks.
Yes,
And is that a great drastic improvement as to what the district completed before that case?
yes, well, we're fixing a lot more leaks. If we get a report of leak, we're fixing it. We do not let them run. If we know about it, we're fixing it.
Okay, and through the commission's guidance and assistance, the commission or the district has reduced its water loss by over 10%, you would say?
Oh, yes.
Is there anything,
And it will get better in the next few months.
is there anything I did not ask you that you believe would be helpful for the commission?
Can't think of anything right off.
Thank you, Mr. Gifford. I'll pass the witness.
Thank you. Ms. Koenig?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Gifford. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So it is a little bit hard to hear you and to understand you just because of the technology. So if I'm making a face, I'm just trying to understand you and hear you with the computer. But please let me know if you can't hear me. And I might ask you to repeat something just because it's hard to hear in the hearing room. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. And so on that note, I apologize if I'm asking you to repeat anything that you've said, but if I had a question about it, I'm going to ask you to clarify from your previous testimony, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So as a matter of first business, are you testifying as a representative for Willis Gilbert?
Well, he's not here, so I'm next in line, so yes, I am.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm not sure if this business should be taken up later. Mr. Willis, I don't know if we need to take this up later, but Mr. Gilbert was responsible for most of the testimony in 1941, and I will be referring to that, but I don't want to ask this witness to account for Mr. Gilbert's absence. And Mr. Willis, I don't know if you would like to state anything to the commission about Mr. Gilbert's absence. Staff was not informed that he was going to be absent, and I believe this hearing has been scheduled since October. But if you are willing to accept Mr. Gifford's testimony on behalf of the utility for that time, we'll proceed. Mr. Gifford, do you feel like you're qualified to testify about the time period that Mr. Gilbert testified in 1941?
On the finance part of it, I cannot. On some of the water loss, I can. On the financial part, I didn't have anything to do with that.
Okay, and Your Honor, I will, with your permission, instruct the witness to just explain if he can't respond to something, but with your permission, I will just direct my questions that were for Mr. Gilbert to Mr. Gifford.
Yeah. Mr. Willis, do you have any problem with that? I'm fine with us moving forward that way. Obviously, if he wasn't involved in the financials, he's not going to be able to answer those questions, but I'm fine moving forward. Obviously, even though he is an employee of the district, he's already stated he has no knowledge of that, but that he can discuss water loss. Do you have any objection to moving forward in that fashion?
I would just apologize. I was unaware of his absence till this morning, and it has been scheduled for some time. And I don't know if it would be correct that he would testify on behalf of Mr. Gilbert, which is mainly just a term, I guess you would say. He would be testifying in Mr. Gilbert's absence, but not on behalf of Mr. Gilbert. And just to clarify the record, if that's agreeable.
No, I think that's fair and appropriate. So why don't we move forward? We can discuss Mr. Gilbert's absence at the end and whether or not we need to keep the hearing open or just have any data requests. But let's move forward with Mr. Gifford and see what we can get done.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Gifford, so, on that note, I will clarify, you were also serving as manager with Mr. Gilbert? Or
Yes, I was an assistant.
assistant, okay. So, again, just let me know if I'm questioning about something that is outside your territory. But were you present for the 2019-41 hearing in July of 2019?
Yes, I was present, but I did not speak.
Okay, understood. And from the record, it looks like everyone that is on the board or employed right now was also present at that hearing. Is that your understanding as well?
I think the only ones that was at the hearing was me, Willis Gilbert, the manager, and Bill Gilbert, the chairman.
Okay. I did note Mr. Steve Eisen was not present, and he was the accountant, or was he the treasurer on the board?
No, he's not, he's just a commissioner on the board.
Okay. Is he present today?
Yes, he is.
Okay, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, well, I am going to ask about a couple of things that were addressed. But were you responsible for helping with any of the responses in 1941, or for the responses for this case either?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So I'd like to ask about, we'll start with the cost of production. That was a topic that was heavily covered in 1941, and at the time, the utility stated that the cost of production was $2.50. Do you recall?
Yes, I think that's what we said.
Okay. There was a lot of discussion about how that was developed, and that perhaps that needed to be updated. Has that been updated to your knowledge?
Yes, we did update that.
Okay. Could I ask what the cost of production is right now?
I do not have that with me right now, but I remember Mr. WC doing that, Willis doing that. He got with the water plant and they figured everything up, what the cost of chemicals and everything was. Now, I'm not sure what the final figure was. I can
Okay.
actually get that to you if you want me to.
Okay, thanks. I'll make a note of that. So just trying to clarify what your job position is. So do you help, for the record, is WC Willis or is WC Bill?
WC is Willis, yes.
Okay. And then Bill Gilbert is the chairman of the board, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and they are brothers, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And so did you have any hand in presenting information to the board for consideration at their monthly meetings?
I'm not sure what you're asking now. What was that?
Okay, there was testimony that the board discusses analyzing cost-benefit analysis on their decisions for projects, et cetera. And part of that determination was based on the cost of production being $2.50. And Mr. Gilbert testified that he presented that information to the board. Were you involved in developing that?
I was probably there. I don't remember that.
That's okay. So, and I guess what I'm asking is, right now, do you present information to the board?
Yes. Yes, we presented everything to the board.
Okay, and in your training to become manager, is that something that you worked with Mr. Gilbert to do, or is that your sole responsibility now?
That's my responsibility actually starting now, but February 1st it'll be official. And I
Okay,
will present everything to the board, financial and everything.
okay, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, at the time in 2019, and I will keep referring back to you, but what I'm asking about is what's been done since. So essentially, for the record, I'm explaining, what had been done, but I want to know where you are now and what the plans are for the future. That's essentially what my questions are going to center around. And so at the time of the 1941 hearing, and we haven't had any updates since, the utility was meeting with several different consultant groups to determine a plan for water loss reduction. Did that happen, or did you choose a firm? Do you recall, or do you know anything about that?
WC actually talked to a firm, but it didn't play out, and we did not use them. But I have contacted Rural Water. They actually came at once with us, and I contacted them again. We set up an appointment, and due to COVID, we had to cancel it. He was going to come down and help us, do some leak detection stuff. But we had to cancel that due to COVID. And I have not rescheduled that yet.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I cut off there for a minute. Due to COVID, is that why you had to cancel those meetings?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And just to clarify for the record, please, how many operators do you have at the utility right now?
Right now, we only have two, me and myself and one more operator, licensed operator.
Okay. And are you counting Mr. Gilbert as one of those?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so for all intents and purposes, is WC or Willis Gilbert not considered working for the utility at the moment?
Well, yes, he is. So we've actually got three, I guess, right now. Yeah, counting
Okay.
Mr. Gilbert.
Can I ask, and do you know, is it a situation where he's just taking a vacation until February 1st when you take over? Sometimes, somebody's built up a lot of days, and is he out until then, or will he continue?
He is out until then. He has built up vacation. He is out till February 1st.
Okay. So practically speaking, he is no longer making decisions for the utility.
Yes, that's correct. He's not.
Okay, all right. But Mr. Gilbert is a certified operator, you are, and then you have another certified operator. And then you have the two employees that you discussed that you hired for leak detection. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And we have two more that actually reads the meters, but they're full-time employees too.
Okay. And how were the two leak detection employees trained?
We've got them out to where we took them out where they can listen to valves, show them how to listen for water. We'll go downstream and turn the valve off and then go back up and listen to the valve, see how much water is going through that valve. And we taught them how to listen for that, what to look for on leaks.
Okay, but that was performed internally. They were trained by
Yes,
okay.
yes.
And were those two employees responsible for the 160 leaks that you, or primarily responsible for the 160 leaks that you
Yes, they were.
They
They
found?
were actually, yes, they fixed those.
Okay, great. So you would say that they're performing well?
Yes,
Okay, great.
very, very well. I'm very pleased with them.
Okay, that's terrific. Are there any plans to put them on a path to become certified operators?
If they want to be, they have to work, for a while here. But if they want to get certified, yes, that'd be great.
Okay, and so there's not a written policy in place as far as how employees become certified, or that there's a track for employees to become certified or trained?
No, we offer to them if they want to get it certified, they can, and we'll help them any way we can.
Okay, and you have to actually meet standards by having at least one certified operator on the premises, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I'm curious, and I know this was discussed at the last hearing, but how do employees find out what the requirements are, what the regulations are? You had mentioned not understanding about the reports. I know, 3 years ago at the hearing, there was a lot of discussion about not understanding what needed to be provided, and Mr. Gilbert testified that now he would provide the reports and things. So what is in place to make sure that your employees understand what orders you're under, what regulations that you have to abide by, things like that? Is there anything?
We've actually, in the last 2 weeks, we've been going over our tariffs and seeing what we haven't been doing, what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually got a couple of those revised, but we're going over everything, trying
Okay.
to find out what all we really need to do.
Okay, and so, and I would just say that your tariff is like, your contract with the public, and then you also have communication within your facility to your employees. So that might be an area as well to focus on. And so you had submitted several policies and changes after the 1941 order. But that might be an area as well to look at as far as improvement.
Okay.
And so you mentioned the fire department situation and kind of brought us up to date as far as what you're doing there. I would add that that was discussed in great detail at the 1941 hearing in July of 2019. And I just want to ask about some information that was given there. So do you serve 3 counties or 5 counties? Are you over 5 counties or 3? Sorry.
We're in Carter, Elliott, Duffield, Oregon, Lawrence, yes, we've got 5 counties.
About 5, okay. And that includes 7 volunteer fire departments? Is that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right. At the testimony at the 1941 hearing was that out of 7 volunteer fire departments, only 1 at one period of time was filing the required reports.
Yes,
Is
that's
that
correct.
your recollection? Okay. And they, the discussion at the hearing, 3 years ago was that that policy was going to change. So has anything happened, between that time and the time of the IC, the informal conference? Was there any progress as far as your relationship with the fire departments or collecting information from them?
Actually, we reached out to them this week,
So it's just recent.
and they know, because I didn't know all this, what all had to do. We reach out to them, and they will report to us at the end of every month.
Okay, because actually,
And if they don't,
go ahead.
if they don't, I will contact them and
Okay.
a statement.
Okay, understood. And I think that you clarified, and you may have said this, but I couldn't catch from everything you were testifying about, but that there is a $100 fine for not reporting, and it's already in your tariff right now.
I think it is. I think it says $100.
Yes.
I read it the other day.
Yes.
I didn't remember.
Yes, okay. Okay.
So
Go-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, there was an issue with the fire department filling up swimming pools and charging for it. Do you know if that has continued since 2019 or?
I think we did have some problems with that, but we've talked with the judge executives, and if they had gone on to the fire departments and told them there would be legal action taken if they were caught doing that, and I think it has stopped.
Okay, okay. But that,
Hopefully,
and you have testified that that is a area that you're going to focus on for the future, is that correct?
yes, that's correct.
Okay. Also, there was a big issue of a lot of money in 2019 that was spent on line breaks. Do you recall that discussion?
No, not.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask about the progress in that area. Do you know of how much money you've spent this year on repairing line breaks?
No, I cannot answer that.
Okay.
I can get it and give it to you.
Okay. Well, in general, is that a big problem for the water district?
No, it's not a big problem. Most of them are just actually service lines, and it's not a big expense. I mean, overtime is, we have to call the guys out at night, and, we get into overtime there. The actual expense of the line is not that bad. It's not very much.
Okay, I'm going to have to apologize. I really couldn't understand what you were saying. I think we're kind of having a delay or something here, but what I'm specifically asking about are line breaks due to 811 digging, and where they've accidentally broken a line. There was discussion about that the water district was not charging the responsible party if there were line breaks after someone has exposed a line and then there was a rupture, things like that. Are you aware of an issue with that with the utility, or?
Yes, and we have addressed that issue,
Okay,
and so far, we have not had any problems, after that. But, we've got with contractors, and they pretty well know if they break line, they're gonna get charged for it.
okay,
Unless we have it marked the right way or something, then that would be our problem, our fault.
okay. But you're not aware that, in the current scheme of things is a large issue for the water?
No, it's not a large issue now at all.
Okay. And it isn't, in the 800,000 range like it was in 2019?
No, not at all.
Okay, that's great. That's good news. Okay. All right. Well, I would ask you to kind of update us on your meter replacement progress. You did touch on this in your testimony, and so I apologize for what you are repeating, but you talked about, that there is an issue with meter replacement that you hope to address in your Phase 12 project. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Do you know how many meters right now need to be replaced?
We're actually going to replace all of them. And we've replaced some during the last year, but we're going to replace probably 4,000 meters.
Okay. So that is like an update, to update the meters? It's not because they're not working, or is it so that you can radio read and spend less time reading it? I know you said it takes like 15 days, to get the information and analyze it, so you can't compare. Is that why you're replacing all
Yeah.
4,000?
Yes, we'll replace them, and a lot of them are older meters, and they're slow. We know they're slow and they're locked up. The meters we use now, if they get a little sand or something in them, they'll actually just stop and lock up. These iPearl meters, they're a straight through meter. There's no moving parts, and they're very accurate. And I think it'll help us on our water loss tremendously.
Okay. And Sumner from Bluegrass Engineering, he's your project leader on that?
Yes, he is.
Okay. And he has actually been consulting the utility since 2019 or before, is that correct?
Yes.
So, and he's present there, he's on the witness list, so he's available for testifying, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, he is.
Okay. Does Mr. Sumner advise you at the board meetings, or do you have an ongoing relationship with the engineer to where he meets with you regularly, or how do you work with him?
I talk to him regularly, but he's at all of our board meetings. He's at every board meeting. And actually, me and him has got a meeting after this one with the meter people, talk to them, discussing where we can actually try to go on the suggestion of our ECCs. They've got a grid where they read their electric meters all in one day, and they give us permission to use that grid. And we've got a meeting with those people after this one today.
Okay. Are you responsible for filing the annual report?
I guess I will be now, but I wasn't.
Okay, and was that Mr. Willis Gilbert's responsibility?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to ask that we pull up PSC Exhibit 1 at this time. I think Mariah Tussey is able to share her screen and pull that up, please. And Mariah, if you're having trouble,
We were going to take a break around 10. Is this a good time to go ahead and take maybe a 15-minute break? And that way everyone can stretch,
Yes.
do what you need to do, and then Mariah can get that up on the screen for us?
thank you, yes.
Okay, why don't we recess until 10 after, let's say, and we'll have the exhibit ready then, if there's no objection from you, Mr. Willis.
No objection.
Thank you. We'll be back at 10 after.
Thank you.
We are back on the record in case number 2021-00340 regarding Rattlesnake Ridge Water District. Ms. Koenig, you may continue your questions of Mr. Gifford, and you are still under oath.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gifford, can you say something so we can see if we can hear you again?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Okay, I was asking you about who's responsible for the annual report, and you said that was Mr. Gilbert before, but going forward, that's going to be you. And at the December IC, you provided the 2020 audit report that had not been filed yet. You provided that to staff. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And have you reviewed that audit?
No, I have not.
Okay. If I asked you generally about your net losses, would you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes. I
Okay.
think so.
And I believe at the IC, or at the informal conference, staff had questions because, based on the annual report and the audits that you filed with the commission, the utility has experienced losses for the last few years. Can you explain how you're able to operate with net losses for several years now?
To be honest with you, I don't know even what the losses were. I haven't read over that. I know we're all right financially right now.
Okay, and I mean, based on what, do you have an accountant or an auditor, or do you have
Yes.
somebody advising you
Yes, we
or
have
the
an
board?
accountant. We have an accountant, yes, we do.
Okay, and who is that accountant?
It's Stiles, Jonathan Stiles.
And how long has he been your accountant?
Oh, gosh, probably, I'm not 100% sure, probably 6, 7 years.
Okay, so he was in 2019 as well.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know, I know that Mr. Gilbert testified that he felt like the utility was doing better because he was starting to put money in a short-lived asset fund at the time of the 2019 hearing. Are you in charge of putting money in funds or anything like that?
I will be after, starting now.
Okay, and so have you performed any business like that yet, or?
No, actually, the lady that's stepping up, she's does a lot of the office stuff, this kitchen, and she's gonna start doing that. She has been doing it for the last couple of weeks.
Okay, so you aren't able to speak to whether you're using your depreciation fund or what funds you're using to operate on despite losses that have been recorded?
No, not exactly.
Okay, and you think that Ms. Kitchen would be able to speak to that?
Probably so.
Okay,
She's just taking over too, so she's not up on all this either, but we're working together, me and her are working together, and we're getting everything lined out.
understood. Thank you very much. Okay, before the break, I'd asked Ms. Tessie to pull up the map of your system. Would you agree that this looks like an accurate map of your system?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and just for the record, I'd state that professional engineer with a degree, and I cannot actually pronounce that, but I know we have a consultant at the PSD that developed this based on the records that are in the WRIS system. And so we asked that this be developed for this hearing for reference. And again, you had stated that you serve about, your service territory covers about 5 counties. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And part of the new project going forward, you discussed that it includes extending some service lines as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
And I believe those are indicated in green. Is that right? It looks like near Olive Hill and,
Yes, we do have some over toward Olive Hill. Yeah, I see the green there now, yes.
okay. And do you know how many customers that service line will serve?
Uh, mm,
That's okay. We could guess
probably 25 maybe.
25. Okay.
I'd have to look. We've got the list of them in here where they signed up, but I'd have to go and look to give you an exact total.
Okay. You know, this project was discussed at the 2019 hearing, and you had, in your testimony, your direct testimony, it stated that you had originally thought that it would be bid out quicker and be, you know, progress quicker. So are those the same 25 customers that were going to receive service in 2019? Are they still waiting?
Yes, that's the same ones.
Okay. And have they paid tap-on fees already, or?
Yes, they have.
Okay. Okay. Looking at your service area and looking at the map, there was testimony at the 2019 hearing that there have been several projects to extend service lines in the recent years. And I believe the testimony was there has not been a project to repair or maintain any main line, but only to extend service line. Is that accurate to your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay. And there was discussion about one service line in particular, was given as an example that, you know, the loan was in excess of $800,000, and it served 3 customers. Do you recall that situation, or do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't recall that one. I'm trying to think which one it would be. I can't
Okay.
recall that one.
Well, okay, in general, do you think that there has been a problem with extending service lines to customers in a number that are not able to make up the cost of that service line in their rates, paying rates?
Yeah, previously, USDA wouldn't hardly fund anything unless we had like 5 or 6 customers per mile.
Okay,
But they have lightened up on that some now. We can get funding for, you know, so if we got 3 or 4 per mile, sometimes we can get it funded.
okay. And
They
so,
have eased up on it.
okay. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, do you attribute some of your financial troubles to the utility taking on the cost to extend the service line to customers that are in number that are not able to pay enough to the utility to make up for the cost of that service line?
Not really, because a lot of that was probably grant. We got a lot of grant money,
Okay,
and
okay,
a lot of the grant money paid for having those lines put in for those type customers.
so you feel like in those situations, it was grant money and not loans from RD or loans that the utility's responsible for now?
I'm sure some of it was loan money from RD, but and we did get some grant money too.
Okay,
Those.
so, I'm talking about there's a situation where there were a few customers that were near Grayson, the Grayson territory. And there was a long discussion about whether whether Rattlesnake Ridge would consider allowing Grayson or asking Grayson to take those customers on the end so that Rattlesnake Ridge didn't have to expend the money to keep that service line maintained and to keep those customers in service. Do you know the discussion in the 2019 hearing ended in that Mr. Gilbert said they were going to consider that, and he would take that back to the board to see if that would be financially beneficial to the utility. Do you know what has progressed in that regard?
No, I do not. Do you have a name of a road there? 'Cause I don't recall that, no.
I do not. I do not. And in general, I think it was that there are several lines that kind of extend out into those other counties where maybe that's an option for the utility to consider. That would help. It would be more efficient, it would be cost efficient, and a cost savings to the utility if they would consider that. And I can find that information to provide later, so we don't take up the time now, but.
Yeah, and I'll check too myself and see what road that was. We haven't turned anything over to Grayson that I can remember at all. So we
Okay,
haven't taken-
but that also hasn't been a discussion?
No,
Okay, so it was near a purchase point, and I realize on the map, those are marked in red, the purchase points.
I know where you're talking. I do know where you're talking about.
Okay,
It's where we used to buy water off of Grayson before we had our plant.
yes,
But we, since then, we put in the last project, we put a PRV, a pressure reducing valve, in an old pump station where we could serve those customers from our tank. So then, we kept those customers.
okay. Do you know why?
Well, they're already in our customer anyway, and I'm sure probably Grayson didn't want them. They didn't want to take over that line. So,
Huh.
we don't purchase any water from Grayson there now.
Mm-hmm.
But we backpedaled through the pump station, so now we kept those customers.
Okay. Do you think that it might be a good policy to consider that as an option in the future?
I don't think so. I mean, that's revenue for us now, and I don't think we'll ever get rid of them now.
Okay, and so the 3 customers, though, are revenue for the utility, but they're 3 customers, so has there been an analysis to how much it costs the utility to provide those 3 customers water, and then compare that to how much rate you're getting for those 3 customers?
Well, it must be a different area, because the area I'm talking about is probably 15 customers.
Okay, well, that's fair, that's fair. I'm just asking about the policy and the analysis. And several of these issues, staff is asking about what has been developed as far as policy, anything written down. There was a lot of testimony in 2019 hearing about this is what we do, but there was nothing written down. And I think even Commissioner Matthews at the time mentioned, it sounds like you do have a policy, but it's just not written. Do you recall that kind of discussion? And so,
Yes.
At the time, the testimony was that was gonna be developed. And like I said, I do acknowledge that there have been some policies submitted in response to 2019, but I'm specifically asking about these areas just to see if you have an update to those policies. And certainly an answer is, not yet or in the process, but we definitely want to note those areas that, could use a good policy.
Okay, yes, we probably do not, but I will address that issue.
Okay, thank you. All right. I would like to just acknowledge that, in preparation for this and in consultation with our team, our inspection staff noted that they felt like the utility has gotten better as far as reporting and is trying to, they would acknowledge technically and with their expertise that the utility has been improving. So I would like to note that. Is it a fair assessment to say that you have a big service territory and a lot to tackle, and that maybe it just got out of hand for a while?
I think it did get out of hand, and I think it's just a lot of not communicating and not knowing who's doing what, and that will stop. I mean, we're communicating good now. We've got an excellent staff. all new staff, mostly on the outside, and I think it's gonna look a lot better going forward.
Okay, great. And this, on that note, you had testified earlier that you feel like processes or I'm honestly asking you to clarify exactly what you said, but that things will be different as you become manager and take on more responsibilities that had been the former manager's responsibility. Can you kind of elaborate on that and how you feel like you had mentioned communication? Are you talking about communication with the commission or communication internally with the utility or communication with the board?
I think with everybody else.
Okay,
I want to stay in direct contact with the PSC, with our board. There's nothing going, I'm gonna send everything to them.
okay,
And our staff now here, we communicate really good. Everybody gets along good, and I think it's gonna be a great place to be. Great place
Okay.
to work.
okay, thank you very much. And then finally, what analysis and what discussion, and I'm not sure, have you been the point person at the board meetings, at the most recent board meetings? Or was that the former manager's position?
Yeah, that was, WC, he was the one presenting most of the stuff
Okay.
to the board.
Okay, but you attended the board meetings?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what discussion has taken place as far as filing a rate case? Your last rate case was in 2013, and that was discussed at the 2019 hearing. The cost of production, the $2.50 was discussed at length, and in the end, I believe that both representatives from the utility testified that was low, that did not include increases in the electric bill and the power and storage, et cetera. But there was also a lot of discussion that you had a pretty high rate at the time. And specifically, if you were able to address your water loss, that there might be, significant savings to the utility. And so that might be able to free up some money. And I believe that the discussion was you had to spend money to make money. That was kind of what was said and discussed. And I don't know if you recall that or not, but what I'm asking about is what analysis, what discussion has occurred as far as filing a new rate case?
Actually, I haven't even discussed that, filing a new rate case yet. I would like to do a study and see how much it does cost us to produce 1,000 gallons of water now.
Mm-hmm.
And go from that. Maybe we don't need a rate increase. If we can get a hand on this water loss, and I think we can, I think that'll help us a whole lot.
Okay. Would you say that a lot of your focus has been the Phase 12 project as far as since 1941?
Yes, I think so. I think the Phase 12 project will make a big difference in water loss and
Okay.
in revenue because of our slow meters.
Okay. But the utility didn't stop there, right? You hired the two leak focused employees, and so you're doing the other things, but there is a lot put into this Phase 12 project, right?
Yes, there's a lot put into it.
Okay.
No, we haven't let up on water loss either. I mean, and we won't.
Okay,
We're still working on it every day.
right.
And it has come down. I think Phase 12 will help that much more too.
Okay. And then zone meters, that's gonna be included in your Phase 12 project as well, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Gifford. I really appreciate your testimony and explaining and clarifying. Thank you for your time. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Normally, we go to Commissioner Butler, then me, but we're going to flip that. So, Mr. Gifford, you get me now. Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate hearing from you.
Thank you.
I want to start with the map, since it's already up on the screen. And this is a question a topic we really haven't covered, and some of this is the fact I'm new and I want to make sure I understand some of how your district works. I notice on here there's marked Rattlesnake Ridge Water District selling points with green squares and purchase points in red. I want to get clarity on how current that is and where you're currently purchasing and selling water. I see the two red ones, it's apparently listed as purchases from the Grayson district, but it sounded like you just said that you may not be purchasing from Grayson right now. Are you all purchasing from Grayson?
No, we're not. We're not purchasing any water from Grayson now.
Okay. Are there any plans to purchase from them in the future?
No.
Okay. So then on the sales in the green, I see down at the bottom corner, we may have to scroll up a little bit. We've got emergency Big Sandy Water District. Are there currently emergency sales to Big Sandy?
Actually, we sell to Big Sandy every month now.
Okay.
On the Sandy Hook, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. How are the rates set with Big Sandy? Is there a contract in place with them?
Yes, they are.
When was the last time that rate was revisited? Do you know?
It was actually in 21, and I can't give you the exact date without pulling the contract.
Okay. Then on Sandy Hook, is that emergency sales or is that monthly sales?
That's the emergency only.
Okay. And is that also set by a contract?
No, it isn't. And I think we've only had to use that one time.
Okay. Then we've got, the only other one I see is Vansburg Water. Is that a recurring sale?
Yeah, actually, we've got those customers now. There's only 2 customers there.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. I'm going to skip around because I'm now the third person, and I'll try to be somewhat organized for you so it's not too hard to follow. But first I'm going to talk about meters and the meter replacement that's planned. I know right now that Phase 12, you're proposing to replace all the meters in the district, and they will be replaced with the radio read meters. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you know how many total meters you have in place right now?
About 4,300.
Okay. Do you know how many of those are active with the customer?
That's probably, I think that's active. About 42 something are active.
Okay. Do you know how many are inactive?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. We've got, not really. I can't give you a definite answer on that.
Okay.
We've probably got 200 or 300 that's not active.
Okay. Now, as far as how you're going to go about replacing these meters, obviously you don't replace 4,300 meters in one day. Is there already a plan about how that's going to be staged?
Yes, there is. We're just going to let, and the engineer will probably tell you more about it. We're going to let the contractor do it in phases. Once he gets one area done, he can't just jump to another area. He has to get one area done. We'll get it all in computers, and then he can go to the next area.
Okay. And this may be a question more for your contractor, but are those areas being determined by where you believe you have the biggest water loss? How are you deciding which ones to do first?
Yeah, actually, the service lines it's all the original project. When we first started the district, that's the ones we're replacing. And that's probably where we'll start putting the meters in too. When they're replacing the service line, we'll put meters too.
When you were, or when the district was deciding to move to the radio read meters, do you know if there was any cost benefit analysis undertaken, anything in writing, trying to analyze moving to those kinds of meters versus the traditional meters?
No, I do not.
Okay. Now, I know your two new employees have been doing, it sounds like, a really good job of finding leaks even without some of the new equipment in place, and not just finding them, but also fixing them. Are you all documenting all of that leak repair in writing?
Yes, I document every leak.
Okay. I know that, Phase 12 has unfortunately been delayed because of COVID and funding delays, and I think we all know that construction costs, because of supply chain issues, have gone through the roof, unfortunately. Do you have yet a new estimate of how much Phase 12 is going to cost, and whether or not the grant money you've received will cover it?
It will cover a lot of it. I think it's up around 4 million, close to it. I'm sure Riley can probably tell you more about that. But, there is a lot of grant money. It will cover, of course, we don't know what the bids will be, but I think we're prepared for it.
Okay. If the grant money doesn't cover it, what's the plan to pay for it?
We've got an RD loan too, so I think most of the funding is already in place for it.
Okay. I know that obviously water loss is a huge issue, and controlling it could help the district avoid rate increases in both the near and long-term future. Do you have in your mind, in your experience, what you think a reasonable water loss rate would be for your district, given its unique challenges?
I'll be honest with you, I don't think we'll ever get to 15% in the terrain that we have. I would like to get down to 20%, but I don't ever foresee 15% in our terrain, I really don't.
Okay, but you think you could get down in the 20s?
I think we can, I really do. I think with the new project and the guys fixing leaks and stuff, I think we'll be in the 20s.
Which, of course, is a great improvement.
Yes.
I know you've talked about zone meters. Do you have any zone meters now, or will that all be new?
It'll all be new.
Okay. I want to shift to some of the communication issues you've talked about. I know you've talked about wanting to improve that both internally and with us at the PSC. The first question I want to ask about are the monthly water loss reports that at one point had been, I think we'd gone for maybe 10 months without getting one. I believe those are all up to date. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I did not know I needed to do that. And I've been doing it ever since I found out that I needed to.
Okay. For things like that, where you didn't know that it was necessary, are you putting any written procedures in place, both just to make sure that you have a monthly checklist of everything, but also in case, let's say, you end up getting sick and being out for a month, so that someone else who's there knows what to file?
I'm gonna, Becky Kitchen will take over as assistant, and I'm gonna go over everything with her, what I've done. If something happens, I can't do that, and she'll know what to do. That way, we'll be on communication. Me and her's in a great communication when we know, we talk every day with each other, go over everything we're doing.
Okay. So you all are obviously working well together, but are you planning on putting all that in writing and in a manual or anything?
We will do that. Yes, we will.
Okay. I'd highly recommend that for a couple of reasons. One, for just the very reason we're talking about, sometimes people get sick or things happen, but also I know I can't remember everything I'm supposed to do on a daily basis if I don't have things written down. It just does make it easier, so then you don't get in a bind and go, oh no, we haven't filed this report for 10 months. So I do think it would make your all's lives easier. I know nobody has time to pull out and sit and write these policies, but I think in the long term, it would make your life a whole lot better if some of these things were just put even in checklist form.
We will do that, I promise.
Yeah. I want to turn now with communications between you all as staff, and obviously I know you can only speak for yourself, and your Board of Commissioners. How does that work? How often do you talk to your commissioners?
We meet once a month, but if I've got an issue comes up during the month, I can call any of them.
Okay. Who sets the board agenda? Do you help prepare that, or does the chair of the board do that?
Willis Gilbert normally does that, but it'll probably be me now.
Okay. Do you, and obviously, you know, you can't speak for Mr. Gilbert if you haven't started doing it, do you know how that agenda, how he decided what to put on the agenda?
I really don't.
Okay. Do you know if you got in something from the PSC, if that was automatically sent to all the commissioners?
No, I don't know if it was or wasn't, but
Okay.
I can, if I get something in, I can send it to the commissioners.
Okay.
But
I think that might help, because I know here there's been some concerns expressed that, you know, people didn't know what was in an order or things like that. I think if they're just circulated, and if that's just a policy, that could be helpful here too, just so nobody gets surprised, because we don't want you all to be surprised by anything we're doing here either.
Okay, well, if we get anything from PSC, I'll make sure it goes in their folder. They get a folder every meeting. I'll make sure there's a copy of everything in their folder.
Okay. I know we've talked some about the transition of financials, and I think you said Ms. Kitchen was going to be handling those from here on out?
Yeah, most of the financial part she will.
Okay. And did Mr. Gilbert train her any before he went on his leave?
She has been working with him probably last month. So she's pretty good, and she done some of it anyway. I mean, she works here in the office anyway. So she's up on a lot of it. There's a lot of it I'm sure she'll still have to learn, but
Okay.
we've got auditors or accountants, we can call on.
Okay. And are you also learning the financials just so you know what's going on as manager?
Yes, I am. Me and her does everything together.
Okay. And I would encourage you, Ms. Kitchen, just like the other issues, that for financial policies, to get some things in writing to make sure you know that everything that needs to be done each month is done, and that you're following checklists. And for your own benefit, and then for whoever comes behind you. I'm sure it would help you right now if you had some checklists. Who decides, when there's, turning to a different topic. I know there's been a lot of water line extensions over the past few years, and I know there's one planned for phase 12. Who does the Board of Commissioners approve those?
Yes, they do.
Help me understand, if you can, how one of these projects would come up from start to finish. How would you even begin to start to have a water line extension? I'm not sure if that's clear or not.
Yeah, normally we get a petition from the customers on that road. They'll say, we've got a petition here, and they get it, and they get everybody to sign a petition saying that they do want water, and we give that to our engineers, and he goes and looks at it and sees, more or less looks and sees if it will be feasible to do that, how much line it'll take, and how many customers, and then he does that, and then when we get up a little further, we take tap fees to make sure they actually do want water. But a lot of them will sign, and then they won't sign up for water. But once they sign a water user agreement and pay that tap fee, then we know they are interested in water.
Okay, those tap fees, I take it, are those put in some sort of escrow account until the person actually gets water service?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And then once you get everybody with a user agreement, is that when it's then presented to the board for approval?
Actually, we present the petition to the board, and, they approve, the engineer will go out and look at it and see if it's something we can do or we can't do. and then they'll give the engineer permission to go ahead and follow up on it, if it's something that we can do.
Okay, is the only analysis, at least as far as you know, that's done an engineering analysis, or is there any financial analysis done about whether or not it's financially feasible to take on the new customers?
I'm not sure. I think actually the engineer does the financial on that too. I may be wrong on that, but I think that's the way it is.
Okay, and who is the engineer? Is this someone that you contract with?
Yes, Bluegrass Engineering.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we're talking about the same people.
Yes, yes.
And I believe Ms. Koenig asked you this, and I think you've answered it, but I'm going to ask it again. I may be asking a slightly different way. If you finish, once you get done with Phase 12, do you think your current rates are going to be enough to support the ongoing maintenance of all of your system?
I think it will. I hadn't looked into all that yet, but I think it will, given the revenue off of it. And I think after Phase 12, I think our water loss will go down. I think our revenues will go up. And with our meter project, I think that's going to raise our revenue a very lot. I think our meters are really slow. And I think the revenue from our meters will come up.
Okay. With your revenues coming up because of the slow meters, do you think your customers are prepared for possible increased bills?
Probably not. You'll probably hear from some of them maybe, but I think a lot of them's got low bills, and I think we will have some complaints, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But we can handle that.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions. I thank you, sir, for your time here today and for being with us.
Thank you.
Commissioner Butler, do you have any questions?
I can't hear her.
Okay, looks like you're still muted.
Okay, sorry, I do not have any additional questions right now.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Willis, do you have any redirect?
No further questions.
Okay. Well,
Or
Mr.
actually, I apologize if I could ask a couple brief questions.
of course, go right ahead.
Okay, with following the 1941 case, did you also update the district safety meeting logs and safety manuals?
Yes, we have a meeting probably every Monday morning if everyone's here. We have safety meeting in the room out here, meeting room.
And another issue that the commission addressed was the property damage that the PSC staff touched on. You did follow up and comply with that directive from the Federal Service Commission as well.
Mr. Willis, our court reporter is having a little trouble hearing you, so if you could either speak up or maybe get closer to the microphone, I think that would help.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
With regard to the property damage, the PSC staff touched on that briefly, but that was something that we discussed following the 1941 case, correct?
Yes,
As well as the safety meetings, the logs, and the manual.
yes, we've taken care of that. We have a safety meeting every week.
No further questions.
Ms. Koenig, do you have any follow-up after that?
I have no further questions.
Do you have anything else, Commissioner Butler?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well, Mr. Gifford, I have a feeling you'll be sticking around, but your questioning is over for now. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here today.
All right, thank you all.
And Mr. Willis, you may call your next witness.
Riley Sumner.
Mr. Sumner, could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Could you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Riley Sumner. I'm with Bluegrass Engineering, 222 East Main Street, Orangetown, Kentucky.
Okay, Mr. Willis, you may ask your questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sumner, can you please state the name of your business or company?
It's Bluegrass Engineering.
And does Bluegrass perform work for Rattlesnake Ridge Water District?
We do.
And how long has your company, in one of your companies, worked with Rattlesnake Ridge Water District?
We were hired for the Phase 11 project. I think it was probably about 2016. They went out for procurement, and they had changed engineers at that time with the employment of Bluegrass.
And are you primarily responsible for the planning and the completion of the Phase 12 project?
I am, just as I was for Phase 11.
Can you expand on anything regarding the Phase 12 project that you feel like Mr. Gifford did not inform the commission of?
Well, the Phase 12 project was started immediately after the Phase 11 project concluded. We concluded Phase 11 in December of 2019. They started procurement for Phase 12 in January of 2020. So they knew they had to get on the ball with looking at the water loss.
And do you believe that Rattlesnake Ridge has made great progress in tackling the water loss issues?
I do. I mean, this project is set up primarily for water loss. There's a few line extensions in it, but with the master meters set up, the service line replacement, there's about 750 service lines that will be replaced, and of course the 4,000 meters replaced. We're optimistic that we're going to see a difference with the conclusion of Phase 12.
When was the Phase 12 project to begin?
Well, went through procurement with RD, like I said, in January of 2020, and we got Division of Water approval a year later in January of 2021. Everybody's aware of all the checklist items you have to go through. So we were basically ready to go probably in February of 2021. We did get approval to advertise for rural development. I think we requested that a month or two after that. And so we also, not only is RD funding involved with the funding, but we were going through DDBG for a block grant of $1 million. And that, of course, that's done through a grant writer. The engineer's not involved with that. Once we kind of got involved with this thing, and as was alluded to earlier, the cost has skyrocketed. So we actually had proceeded early on. We didn't figure it into the rates because we didn't know if we could get it or not, but we went with decided to go ahead and apply for a $500,000 ARC grant. We have been awarded that ARC grant. So that's kind of is going to help us with some of the cost overruns that we expect with phase 12. But we're currently, ARC is good to go. We've got permission to bid there. We've gotten permission to bid from RD. The CDBG, we've gotten preliminary approval, but we have not been given permission to advertise for bid. So right now, we've been in a little bit of a holding pattern, and we continue to be in that pattern.
How much money do you expect will be made available through these grants and procurement efforts?
Well, we started at about a $3.2 million project. Like I said, we didn't figure in initially the $500,000, but since we got that, it's gone to $3.7 million. Of that, about 55% is grant. We always try to get as much, that's just part of our business, is to try to get as much grant money as we can for our clients. And Rattlesnake's not any different.
How much do you think the project will cost success of the grant?
Oh, wow. That, like I said, the $500,000 will help offset some. I still expect, because I've bid a few projects in the past year, and it's pretty shocking to the system. I think we'll probably still have some overruns. We can go back to RD and get some more loan money. That's limited. We can also cut, and where we would cut, I've already brought this up to the board before, that we would probably need to cut in the water main extension. We cannot touch the items that affect the water loss. So if we have to cut something, then it will most likely be in the water main extensions.
Okay. Are any of your job duties related to advising the water district financially as far as cost benefit analysis and potentially the effects it would have in Western rate?
Well, we get into the rates obviously with rural development in the summary addendum. We look at how much loan money is going to be spent on the project. And we look at, what their current situation is. We actually look at that so we can come up and, with what the new rate should be, to pay off the additional loan amount. Plus, there's an increase in cost of fuel and just various things that we also figure in. I don't do that personally. We have somebody in our office that handles the summary addendums. It's a lot more financially than I am. So.
Okay. Do you do a lot of work with water districts? Or are you primarily involved in doing work with water districts?
I primarily have worked with water districts for about 40 years.
Okay. With regard to Rattlesnake Ridge, first let me ask you, have you attended nearly all board meetings since the 1941 case?
I have attended all board meetings, probably since, as long as we have a project, I make it a priority to be here. If we didn't have any projects going on, I probably would not attend, but for the most part, we've had something going on ever since the first month that we were hired. So I've been at most of them. I don't always stay for the entire meeting. Since I have a little travel time, I usually am at the top of the agenda. So sometimes I stay, it just depends on what kind of need they have from me.
Does the board discuss water loss at every meeting?
Water loss is a big concern. It really is. I've heard it from pretty much day one, and it needs to be discussed here. But I also think that there's some positive steps in taking.
What steps do you believe, or are you referring to?
Well, it's kind of what Mr. Gifford had touched on earlier. The service lines, I've seen some of these service lines, and they have got to be replaced. We have 750 that we have identified. So to me, that's going to be one of the main areas that we're focusing on. Also, the meters, as again, Mr. Gifford has alluded to earlier, 4,000 of those will be replaced. They're old, as we know, as meters get older, they always tend to slow down, they never speed up. So I'm really optimistic and confident that at the conclusion of contract 12, that we're going to see some improvement. Am I going to estimate? No, but we will see improvement.
In your experience, how does Rattlesnake Ridge compare to other districts as far as the difficulty regarding density of customers and geographic?
Well, I work some in this area of the state. I have several other clients, but it is spread out. There's I don't know for a fact, but I'm guessing 500 miles of water lines that is, as David Gifford alluded to earlier, is in very difficult topography. A lot of it's in the ditch lines. It's rock. There's a lot of different pressure zones. And it is a difficult area to serve, and it's really kind of remarkable in some areas.
excuse me, when an area is more remote and there's a greater distance between customers, does that create more difficulty locating leaks?
Oh, sure, yeah, I mean, they're spread out, if you had, if you were a city and you just had, just a small area to oversee, that'd be one thing. If you're going through into 5 different counties and covering all of Carter, that's a challenge in itself. And it's really, I sometimes am amazed at how well they do, under the circumstances. It is a challenge.
Do you believe that, in your experience, that the greatest difficulties that Rattlesnake Ridge have are problems with infrastructure and other factors beyond its control versus the competence of the guys in the field?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm seeing here, and like I said, I just started at 16, but I'm getting more confident and by the day, and really excited when you step into a new client, and where we were before phase 11. I was a little concerned, but I'm seeing there's been phase 11 was vitally important to this district, and that went remarkably well. We got a lot accomplished, and I'm excited for the same thing to happen with contract 12. But the people here are working hard and are trying to make a difference.
Okay. And the district is undergoing a lot of changes right now with management, with the new project. What changes do you think, or what's the difference between the water district as far as management, morale, policy, procedure now versus when you first began?
Well, I've pretty much worked with David from day one, and Willis Gilbert, who was manager, I guess, up until just recently. But they've been super to work with. We'll just have to see move forward that question. But I'm excited in the direction. We're going in the right direction.
And so you've worked closely with Mr. Gifford and with Becky Kitchen, who's
Oh, yes, yes.
and you believe that they will do a good job in the future?
Absolutely, absolutely. If anybody can survive what they have in the last year with ice storms and floods and COVID, it's remarkable that they've been able to get done what they have. My hat's off to them.
So with regard to COVID, ice storms, floods, the district has still managed to greatly reduce the water loss.
They have, from what I understand. And we did add, at phase 11, we had a little bit of money at the very end. We had some contingency money, and we did some improvements to the pump stations with that contingency money. And at the very end, we had a little bit. And when this came up, we decided to put a new master meter outside of the plant. And we did see a difference with that, in what the 2 meters were reading, which helped as well.
Is there anything I did not ask you or that you didn't, that Mr. Gifford did not address that you think would be helpful to the commission?
I do want to clarify that I'm not an engineer. I work for an engineering company. I'm the project manager. So I do just want to clarify that.
And what about for the actual district itself, that things that you have seen or you see changing? Is there anything you would like to comment on to inform the commission?
Well, one thing I've seen here, just kind of generally speaking, is this board has a heart to get people water. There's some really difficult areas, poverty-wise in this area. And I've seen a heart of these people to try to get as many people potable water as they can. And I know a lot of times they'll give me a road, and I'll go out and look at it, and I'll go, look, it's just isn't financially feasible. I mean, it's hard to say no, but so we'll get these different roads. Y'all kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, and I'll go out and look at them, and then I'll kind of put a cost estimate together with each one they want to do, and put a price tag to that, how many people, potential customers they have for that road, and then just kind of list those in a kind of prioritize. And then, at some point you got to draw the line. It's just not feasible. And, but they do have a heart to try to get people bottled water in some pretty, desperate areas, I guess, that's where to put it. But we look at that, and then sometimes we have to cut, and, I know I've looked at a lot of lines that never even got past, to the next step, so.
After the 2019 case, there's obviously been a change in management, correct? Or continues to be a change. The district added 2 employees dedicated solely to water loss. Is there also a nearly new crew on the outside?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm seeing that kind of just from the outside, but, I have noticed that there's some new employees. I know at the board meetings, and, I've had some interaction with them, and I'm very, excited, I guess, for lack of a better word, of the direction that they're going. These people seem to be genuinely interested in trying to make a difference, and that's what you want.
And does there seem to be a good morale and working environment? Everyone gets along?
Yes, everyone gets along. I just kind of have seen, if you could graph it out, I think I can just kind of see it each, from 16 on, it's just kind of gotten, I mean, we have folks here and there, I say we, because I work with them and feel a part of this family here, but for the most part, it's continued to get better. So I'm excited about it.
Thank you, Riley. I'll pass it with us.
Thank you. Ms. Conant? Oh, wait, we've been going about an hour. Maybe it would be a good time to take about a 10-minute break, if that's okay with everybody. I just want to make sure we don't make this hearing uncomfortable physically for people, so we can all have a stretch break. Is 10 minutes okay for everybody?
Sure.
Okay, well, we'll come back, let's say, at 11:20, and we'll complete the questioning of this witness. We'll be in recess until then.
Thank you.
board. We're ready for Ms. Koenig's examination of Mr. Sumner. And just to remind you, you're still under oath, Mr. Sumner. You may
Yes,
proceed.
ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Sumner.
Good morning.
Hi, I just have a couple of questions for you about Project 12, or the Phase 12 project, sorry. Does the district have a hydraulic model?
Yes, they do.
Okay, did you develop it?
I did not personally, our engineer did.
Okay. Do you know when it was last calibrated with the field data?
No, I know we had that, developed it for phase 11. But since then, I don't know if I have an history with it.
Okay, do you know if it was used in the design of Phase 12?
Yes. Of course, we had to use it for the lines. Of course, when you get into meters and service lines, there's not in the replacement items.
Okay, is it standard procedure for there to be a project manager that is not an engineer from Bluegrass Engineering?
Well, it's happened for me on, most of or the last part of my career anyway. Yeah, I think it's pretty common that people have project managers and then engineers as well.
Okay, and then you said you're not an engineer and that you also have someone else in the office does the financial analysis.
Yes, it does a summary addendum, yes.
Okay, and do you know how the depreciation is treated in the summary addendum for the RD?
Well, I probably would defer that to Paul, to do that. I know we've got it, we're seeking a 6% rate increase across the board, for this project. I do remember that, but to get into the nuts and bolts of the summary addendum, I'm not really all that comfortable.
Okay, and you said Paul, is he available to testify today? Who is Paul?
No, he's not, no, he's in our office, he's part of our team. We have a team, and, some people do some things better than others, so that's kind of the way we delegate.
Okay, Paul who though? Who?
Just Paul Reynolds.
Okay, and so is he an accountant or is he?
He's not an accountant, he's a project manager, but he also has a background in finance.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. I understand that there's, different employees that are assigned to do different tasks. I'm just trying to get down to how this project was presented to the utility and who did the financial analysis as far as how much the utility could afford. Was that something that was presented by the engineering firm looking at the utilities finances, or did Bluegrass Engineering assume that the utility was doing that analysis?
Well, the utility comes to us and says, this is what we want to do, especially being a new engineer to this, this is a new client. So we don't have all the background, that having worked here for 15 or 20 years. So, we started out with phase 11. It was a situation where this is what they had planned to do. This is what they wanted to do. It's part of the project profile. And so we were hired to do that. And we modified some things, but for the most part, the district, kind of informs us the next step of what they would like to do. But Rattlesnake Ridge knows a lot more about their system than I do.
Who is that? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The Rattlesnake Ridge Water District knows a lot more about their system than I do.
Okay.
So they're the ones that start, kind of this is the project we think we need to do next. And we have obviously some conversation about that in moving forward, but I don't dictate to them what they need to do.
Okay, so they came up with the idea and they looked at their system as far as replacing meters and water loss and extending the service lines. The utility generated that idea and then sought your assistance to develop the project. Is that fair?
Yes, ma'am, they obviously told me where they had their old service lines were. I obviously didn't know where they were. And so we could focus on that and the meters. And then we kind of helped develop the master meter part of it, going with the zone meters so they could monitor this moving forward on a day-to-day basis and with telemetry as well. So that would kind of help in the future. That was probably something more that we plugged in, but they started out with the meters and the service lines.
Okay, and just clarify for me, I know that you were mentioned in the testimony of the 2019-41 hearing in July of 2019, and so was the project already developed before the 2019-41 investigation?
In 19, we would have been wrapping up phase 11, but had not started, hadn't done anything toward phase 12.
Okay, so when there was testimony that they were gonna do a new project, that's not this project, is that?
Well, yeah, in 19, if they said they were gonna do a new project, yes, it would be phase 12, yes. But we were currently in the middle of construction at the time of your all's last meeting or.
Okay, July of 2019 was the hearing, so were you present for that hearing, or do you know anything about that hearing?
I was not.
Okay, and so I think at the IC, you said you didn't know about this order, and you didn't read this order or investigative report either, is that true?
That's correct.
Okay, and so this project, the Phase 12 project, was not necessarily, or to your knowledge, it was not developed in response to 2019-41, the investigation, the order, the recommendations from the commission. Is that
No,
correct?
I think it was.
Okay.
I think after that, it was like, yeah, we need to get this addressed and let's.
Okay, so the zone meters and that water loss part of it, I'm just trying to kind of clarify the timeline though. So the utility was moved forward with Phase 12 and put those elements in to respond to the 1941 investigation. Okay,
Yes.
okay, all right. So they talked to you about the requirements for 1941, but you were just going off of it from an independent standpoint as far as addressing water loss in general?
Well, I mean, I got feedback from the personnel on what was addressed, but that was about it. And with the items they came up with to address, I was certainly in agreement with those. I had no reason to.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you very much for clarifying that. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Butler, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay, thanks. I do have a few. Thank you first for being here with us today. It's been very helpful. Phase 12, do you have a current cost estimate of what you think the cost is going to be for the entire project today?
That's a moving target. I'll be honest with you. Like I said, I bid one not too long ago, and then from the end of 19, or I guess from the start of 21, I mean, everything's basically doubled. So based on that last big project that I did. So I know that we're going to just have, what I told the board was, we're just going to have, our funding dollars are locked in. When we started back in, 2 years ago with this, with the estimate, well, we know the budget's it's busted. We're hopeful that the $500,000 ARC will help soften that blow some. But I understand that we're just going to have, I'm in a position of let's get it bid, let's see the dollars we have, and let's see what the costs are, and then we're going to have to make some decisions at that point in time. I think everything else is just kind of speculation. It just continues to change, so I'm just at the point of bid it, let's see what we got, let's do some hard numbers, and then we'll make some decisions.
Okay, so when you said earlier about it being approximately 55% grant funded, was that an estimate of today's dollars or back in 2019, 2020?
Well, that's of the 3.7, that's adding in the $500,000 ARC, it started at 3.2. Once we realized, because you never know when you start if you're gonna get any ARC money at all, so we don't figure that into the rate, so once we realized, this is gonna be expensive, so we went after the ARC and, were able to get that. But it's based on the 3.7, when I say the 55%. It might come in at 3.9, may come in at 4.2, I don't know.
Okay. So the 55% then is based on the 3.7.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you know if your financial guy, I missed his last name, I wrote down Paul
Reynolds.
Reynolds. If
Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds,
Paul Reynolds. I hope he's watching.
hi out there, Mr. Reynolds. Do you know if Mr. Reynolds did any analysis on the effect that this project would have on future rates, as far as maintenance, any of that in calculating
Yes.
this?
Yeah, I'm fairly confident that that's the case. We tend to look at, where we are with, if you have more employees, vehicles, so there's a lot of things that come into play in looking for the rate increase. It's not just the loan amount, but it's,
Okay, and that may be in that attachment to the rural development loan that application? I believe you had mentioned, I think you had mentioned that some of that analysis was attached in the rural development application?
yeah, right, it's part of the summary addendum, yes.
Okay. I guess one question I've got, and you obviously have been doing this a long time, if there's no cost estimates or no firm analysis of that, how are you going to evaluate the bids when they come in?
Well, the only reason I say there's none for this right now is because they're constantly changing. I have done some over the last couple of years, or the last year, but each time we bid something, we see some new unit prices. And it's almost like, well, it's already old news. It's already old numbers. So I guess I could put forward an estimate, but that's exactly what it is an estimate.
Okay, but when the bids come in, you will be comparing those against current pricing and,
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, absolutely.
okay. I just have one other question. I think you probably heard me ask about the phase-in of the new meters and how that was going to be determined. Are you going to be the one making recommendations of what's going to be first, what's going next?
Yes, ma'am. We encountered this in some other projects, and we found that the best way to do it, historically speaking, is to break it down into zones. It can be pretty daunting to go out and just start with 4,000 meters, but we've got it set up where they're going to work in different zones. I think there's like 9 different zones, and they have to complete that zone. There has to be the paperwork that has to go with that. We give them a whole list of items that, they don't only work this time. We can actually, if we need a delay because the staff gets overrun with the information transforming the numbers, we can slow it down, but there's a number of guidelines in place to try to keep this in control, and they got to get this one zone finished. Then once they get that zone finished, then they go to the next zone. It's kind of the same way with the service lines. We just don't want people running all over the place. We're going to kind of handle this with a scalpel and go in a particular area, get that done completely, and then move to the next area, because it can get away from you pretty easy.
Okay. And as far as which ones go first, are you prioritizing the oldest, the place where you believe you have the most water loss? How's that being?
Well, generally speaking, I leave that up to the owner. I'll leave that up to the water district. It's kind of the same is true with, you have water mains. Where do you want the contractor to start? And the same will be true with replacing the meters and replacing the service line. I'll look to them to say, where do you want the contractor to go first? In what order?
If they asked you for a recommendation of where do you think they should start, what would you recommend?
On the service line?
Well, let's say the service lines first, then the meters.
Okay. Well, on the service line, I say, well, what area are you having the worst, that you can say, this is our worst area, then let's start there. And then we'll kind of prioritize it, as to where you're having the most difficulty, in leaks, and then just prioritize it and go from there. But I'll be counting on them, because again, they know more about it than I do. And the meters will be the same way. I just, where do you want the meter crew be working
Okay.
first? But again, we're gonna try to keep it tight, because it can get away from you.
Hey, I don't think I've got any other questions. Mr. Willis, do you have any redirect?
No further questions.
Okay. Then I believe you may be excused, though I assume, just like Mr. Gifford, you're going to be probably sticking around for the rest of the hearing. And Mr. Willis, you can call your next witness.
I call Mr. Bill Gilbert.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Gilbert. If you don't mind, could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and could you please state your name and address for the record?
My name's Bill Gilbert, address 3395 Rattlesnake Ridge, Hallfield, Kentucky.
Okay, Mr. Willis, you may ask your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Gilbert, what is your current title with regard to Rattlesnake Ridge Water District?
I'm the chairman of the board of directors,
How long have you been chairman?
37 years,
And how long have you been on the board?
37 years.
Has that been since the inception of
Yes,
Rattlesnake Ridge?
yes, it was.
Were you present for the 19-41 hearing?
Yes, I was.
What steps has the district taken since the 1941 hearing to address the water loss?
Well, there's several things, but the big thing is finding these leaks, putting down additional 2 people to help do those duties, and a big increase in the water loss down from roughly 60% down to 40 is a big time change. And we got these guys looking every day out there, whether they're going to fix a mainline leak or whatever, or phone calls, they're working every day at these losses. And you get a monthly report on that, and you'll see almost an average of 1 a day that you find one way or the other.
Is it true that there have been approximately 160 leaks detected and repaired since the hearing?
Total numbers I don't see, I see it monthly. Some months I see 21, some months I see 35. So that 160 is a total of, I don't know exactly when they started it.
In addition to adding the 2 new employees, what other steps has the district taken?
Well, that's basically it right there, is looking for these leaks. And the people here in the office, they read these meters and they go back out there and they get the 0 reads, and they go back and try to find these stuck meters. And they do find them. And occasionally find somebody stealing water. There's several steps to do this, but the big thing is getting out there and looking, and that's what they're doing.
Do you think a lot of the water loss is attributable to slow meters?
Probably, yes, no doubt it's a percentage, but for me, my experience on this, what I've seen on it, is these service lines leaking. I'm a good example of it. I walk out to my mailbox the other day and I see water running and there's a big soft spot there in my yard. Service line leaking.
Does Rattlesnake Ridge discuss ways to reduce water loss or steps that have been taken to reduce water loss at each monthly meeting?
Oh yes, we address that every month. Yes.
And since 2019, has that been one of the district's primary goals is to reduce water loss?
Oh, yes, yes, like I said, we do, and it's, like I say, overhead, big improvement. And hopefully see more improvement, I'm sure we will. It's like today, I pulled in the parking lot, backhoe's gone, that means the guys are on another week.
So do you think the district will be in a better position to address water loss, to know exactly what is causing the numbers after the base well project?
Yes, I do, I think it'll take a little bit of time to see all that go in. It's gonna take a few months to put all that in. It'll probably take at least 6 to 8 months to get completed. So I'm sure it's not gonna be an overnight jump change. It's gonna be a gradual thing, in my opinion.
But do you know when Rattlesnake Ridge entered into their sales purchase contract with Big Sandy?
Can't remember exact date, but probably, I'm gonna guess 8 to 10 years ago, yes.
And has the rate remained the same since?
No, we did adjustment. Within the last year, we did readjust the rates.
So that's something else that the district does to prove that we're keep an eye on its financial status.
Right, yes.
What other steps has the district taken to improve its financial status?
Well, probably, to me, the big thing on the thing is water loss.
There's really no way of knowing, but do you believe that the Phase 12 project will detect more water loss, which will in turn increase the revenue?
Oh, yes, very much so. I'll tell you, even a while back, when they were testing these meters, each meter that they test, it'd come back 3 to 5% slow slow restoration on. So that was a loss for us right there. And these meters, these 700 or 800 they're talking about, they've got over, they may be 7 or 8% slow right now.
At the leaking service lines, do you think that is partially due to the material and type of line that was installed in the 1980s?
Yes, we do, and it's called, we call it the blue line. I think you dig in there, when I see these guys working, I go out occasionally where they're at, you dig in there, see a leak, and you see a blue line, you know what the problem.
And are there a lot of small leaks that maybe would be more difficult to locate in that line versus another type of line where there would be a major break?
Right. Yes, seriously, I'd say that. Those get small leaks in them, just like I used the example of all of my line. It's just a small leak, very small, but it was there.
Okay. Has the district continued to contact the fire departments and request information?
Yes, they have. Recently, they sent out, our manager had contacted the fire departments to get them to report on their usage better than what they've done before. And that has been a problem.
In addition to contacting the fire departments, is Mr. Gifford also addressing changing the tariff with regard to the fire departments?
Yes.
We'll go ahead and pass it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Willis. Ms. Koenig, you may proceed.
Thank you. Is it still morning? Okay, yes. Good morning, Mr. Gilbert. How are you?
Good morning, how are you?
Doing just fine. Good to see you again. I have some clarifying questions from your testimony just given, and I wanted to clarify, when you're talking about the blue line, is it also that type of piping referred to as Blue Max?
No, it's not.
Okay, so that's something different?
For as I know it is, like I say, all I know, like I say, it's the blue. We started this thing back in 1985. It was recommended, service line recommended, even for the customer, use just collar yours or anybody's call, but it's a blue line. And it turns out that that's the worst thing that ever made.
Okay, because there's been similar reports from other utilities that have had trouble with Blue Max line, and I thought that's what you were talking about. At the time, people thought that it was good. But I know that you had said you had 2 engineering firms that worked on that project, and that you didn't use them anymore, and that's when you switched to Bluegrass Engineering. Is that accurate?
Well, we switched to Bluegrass Engineering in 2016. This blue line, I'm gonna say, it happened back in the 80s. It changed in the early 90s, and so we got away from that.
Okay. Well, I know that, you testified at the last hearing in July of 2019, and I just wanted to follow up on a few things that were discussed at that time. If you'll recall, the utility was asked to set out their 3 priorities, that they felt like were their top, projects that needed to happen to put the utility back on better footing. And at that time, the utility submitted responses that the service line replacement was the #1 priority. Second was listed as their meter change out, and third was upgrading telemetry to prevent tank overflows. And we've discussed service lines and meters here a lot today, but I just would ask, are those the same priorities, or how would you list your priorities now? How have those changed at all?
The priority is just, it's the service line and the meter, which is one project, well. And the tank overflows, yes, they have corrected a lot of this.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? So what about the tank overflows?
The tank overflows, yes, that has been addressed a lot has been accomplished on that.
Okay, so that's been addressed and accomplished, is what you said. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean,
Okay,
you're still gonna get them occasionally, signal, maybe a bad signal will cause the tank to overflow, but the operator at the plant usually knows that. We have to have somebody go out and take care of it.
okay. Can I ask, did you agree with the recommendations that the PSC made through the 2019 41 case?
Which one are you referring to?
Specifically, I'm referring to the November 22nd, 2019 order, where the commission ordered Rattlesnake Ridge to comply with there were several specific, items listed, such as safety policy manual, your tariffs and specific things, but the general recommendations included zone metering, looking at whether you needed additional resources and assessments like that. Do you recall that order?
I do recall discussing that. Now, each individual, I don't know if I recall that. That's been 2.5 years. Yes, I did agree on all that, yes, and that's what we have been doing.
Okay. Do you feel like you're better off now than in 2019?
Oh, yes, very, very much so. Like I say, finding all these leaks, we got a ways to go. You drop 60% down into the 40s, that right there is self-explanatory to me.
Okay, and on that, do you have your exact water loss right now? And I know that Mr. Gifford had testified it's in the 40s, but I also wanted to clarify from the informal conference, is that just your monthly water loss, or is that the average so far or the average from 2021?
No, that is the monthly. It's
Okay. Do you know what your water loss was for 2021?
not overall, I did not see it, no.
Okay. Okay. And so which month was the 40% water loss?
That was last month, which would have been December's.
December. Okay. Okay. How does the board assess the finances of the utility? What do you take into your analysis?
Well, we look at the manager's report each month and shows us what our status is on each account, and that point there.
Okay, so the report given by the manager is what the board looks at to determine if you're doing okay financially if you're in the black or in the red, so to speak?
Yes, it does, yes.
Okay. I know at the last hearing, there was a lot of discussion about the $650 payment to the accountant. That's a regular payment. Has there been any change to that? I know that Mr. Gifford said you still use the same accountant. Are they under contract? Or how is that relationship?
I don't know that it's a contract, but we do pay it monthly like that. And we did look into getting something, local. This accountant's in, Brown County. We did look into getting something local, but we couldn't find an accountant that was even interested.
Okay, but that was something that you did in response, was to look at those relationships. I know there was a discussion about just best business practices in the report, as far as rotating your professional consultants and things. So, and I understand that you have to go with the resources that are available. So, but that's good that you looked at that. So you're saying that, so financial analysis is done from what the manager provides, and then does the accountant provide a monthly update?
Yes, they do.
Okay, do they provide it to the manager and then the manager supplies it? Or, I know Mr. Gifford talked about a folder. How does that work out?
Yeah, we get a folder each month. It's everything that's going to be discussed at that meeting. And usually, like I say, there will be a sheet in there showing our balance on each account, whether it be loan payment or whatever.
Okay, and so you heard me talk to Mr. Gifford about the losses that have been recorded for several years. Do you know how the utility's been able to maintain its operations?
Well, a lot of that loss is depreciation. If you look at a big part of it, depreciation. And we will always have a loss on depreciation. People couldn't afford a water. If you brought that up to meet, not have a depreciation there, people couldn't afford to pay a water bill.
I'm so sorry. I need to ask you to repeat a little bit of that. I caught every now and again, every other word. So if you don't mind to clarify that again. So you're saying the loss is due to depreciation?
Yes, it is. Yes. If you look on that, it will show it big. If you'll see that loss is depreciation, it's not actual dollars. It's I know depreciation.
So
You have enough all that depreciation in an account somewhere, you're gonna have to go borrow money to do these infrastructure.
okay, so you're saying you're using the money out of depreciation to keep the utility running?
Well, we're not using it, but it's there as a figure.
It's there as a figure.
Right, yeah. But that, I tell you, it's depreciation is what caused that, is showing as a water loss. We couldn't handle a water loss every year and still stay in business. Or a financial loss, I should say, water.
Uh-huh. But actually, I mean, you have been reporting a loss for the past several years. And
Yeah.
so that's what I'm trying to find out. I know that Mr. Gilbert, your brother, Mr. Willis Gilbert, testified at the last hearing that he felt like your utility was doing better because he was submitting about $500,000 into short-lived asset fund, the utility hadn't been able to fund those depreciation funds previously. Are you still contributing to those short-lived?
Yes, I think what we're referring to there is, the way I'm thinking, is the reserve account. RD makes us have so much money in the reserve account, we cannot spend that money without their approval.
Right, okay, and that was also explained a little bit, that there was a portion that you had to ask for permission to use, but that I guess Mr. Doug Hoff from RD had advised you to contribute to your depreciation funds, and so I was just wondering, you know, you are recording losses every year, so I'm wondering if you're just using your funds that would have gone to depreciation in order to keep your utility running.
Well, that's possible. Yeah, I ain't
Okay.
sure.
Okay, but you're not quite sure on that.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
But like I said, reserve account, it's better now and in the 2019 hearing, it's better then, and it's still holding good. There's for years, we could not hardly even get close to what they wanted in that reserve account.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So what analysis has been taken to see, if your rates are sufficient and how that compares to your financial situation?
Well, I said on this next project we got coming up, it has been discussed, we're gonna increase 6% across the board to cover the phase 12 project, the loan money.
Okay, so as part of the loan, the RD had determined that the rates needed to be increased ever so much to make that debt payment, correct?
Right, they do determine, it's not us.
Okay, and you heard me ask him, Mr. Sumner, about the analysis, and what he explained was that the utility knew the system better in order to know what the utility needed, and so they presented that to Bluegrass Engineering as far as what you wanted to do, and then he developed the project. So is that your assessment as well, that you're doing the financial assessment as to whether you can afford the project, or do you feel like that someone else is doing that assessment?
Well, our engineer works with us on that to determine, like I say again too, RD is the one who determined that we needed the 6% increase to cover this.
Okay, and do you recall the discussion at the informal conference just about the depreciation that RD includes in their loans is different than what the PSC assesses in their base rate cases?
I don't quite understand how you're going with that question.
Okay, I don't know that it would be productive to go down that road, so I'll just withdraw that question. Okay, but has the board discussed your rate sufficiency, and have you discussed a new rate case?
Yes, we did. Just 3 months ago, that's when we discussed that we needed a across the board 6% rate increase.
Okay, so you're saying across the board rate increase, and that RD had developed a response to your project and suggested an across the board rate increase, but that is different than a base rate case with the commission, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
and that's what I was trying to get to is, it's a different assessment, correct? RD is trying to look at how much you need to pay that loan to do that project, but they're not looking at your utilities, assets and maintenance requirements and, your system's requirements for depreciation. So it's a different analysis. Would you agree?
Right, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Okay, but like I say, as Mr. Gifford was saying earlier there, once we reduce these water losses way down, our revenue is gonna be up, hopefully quite a bit.
Okay, okay. Well, I hope that you're successful in that. I understand what you're saying. Okay, so I wanted to just ask about the discussion that happened at the last hearing about whether there's an assessment in the system when there are just a few customers on a line or just a few customers near another territory. Does the board do analysis to see whether it would be more efficient to ask another system to take those customers versus the utility spending the money to get water to those customers on down the line?
I don't recall us discussing doing anything like that recently.
Okay, so the board hasn't done that. Would you say that that would be your responsibility to make those choices and make that assessment to see whether it benefits your ratepayers or your utility?
Yes, if it come up, I'm sure our board will be glad to discuss that, yes.
Do you think that's a valid, point of inquiry for your board to take, considering the discussion about how much the utility has taken out in loans to extend service lines for very few customers. And essentially that those rates would never be able to pay enough to pay off the loans that it took to get the water line out to those customers.
Well, that's what I said, our engineer goes out, and he evaluates that based on what it's gonna cost to put that, let's say, 1 mile line in, compared to the revenue that we're gonna get off them 5 or 6 customers.
Uh-huh.
And we trust what he tells us on that.
So you do what the engineer tells you on that, is that what you just said?
Well, what do you think, man? Yes, we definitely sit down and discuss
Okay,
each road. You may go like that, look at, say, there's only 3 people and it's gonna cost $60,000, he'll never pay for itself. And that's just an example.
it's just an example, I understand, okay. And when you refer to your engineer, who is your engineer?
Bluegrass Engineering.
So is there a person other than Riley Sumner that you are working with? Because he said he's not an engineer. Is there somebody else that does that analysis that you,
Well, we work with Riley all the time. He comes to all of our meetings.
I understand, but, and as he's explained, he's not an engineer. So are you just talking about your project manager does that analysis?
Yes, right.
Okay. All right, and then, I kind of touched on this before, and I just want to, confirm finally, going forward, your plan for phase 12. Did you develop the plan for phase 12 with the board and your manager?
Yes, we have. We've worked on this project since 2019 and early, just a little bit before the hearing in Frankfurt. We'd already discussed doing something to improve our problem. And yes, we've discussed it now for 2 years, yes.
Okay, and so going forward, your plan in place is that phase 12 will progress, and you have the 2 leak employees, and then you have a new manager. Are all of your, just curious, what is your term on the board? I know you said you've served since 1983. Do you know when your term date is over, and are you going to have the same board makeup for a while, or is there a turnover soon?
I cannot answer you.
Don't know about the terms?
No, not the individual terms. I do not know that.
Okay. Is it the same board makeup as it was in 2019 right now?
Yes, I see. We might have one new one.
About one new one? Okay. And there's 5 board members, correct?
3 Carter County and 2 Elliott County.
And 2 Elliott, okay, all right. And those are staggered terms, so I'm just curious, and so your brother just retired, and then we have a new manager in place, and then Ms. Kitchen, is going to take on the financial portion of what, Mr. Willis Gilbert was handling as manager, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, all right, and the board approved all of those hiring changes, is that correct?
Yes. We've discussed those for the last 2 or 3 months.
Okay, all right, and so, how would you assess your communication with your management?
It's very good, so I'll say it's very good, and we meet once a month, but then we also get in contact more than that if necessary.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Gilbert. I have no further questions.
Commissioner Butler, any questions?
Just a quick one. You said that you readjusted the rates with Big Sandy last year.
Approximately a year ago, yes.
Did you go through the commission for that, or did you let the commission know you had a rate adjustment with them?
Yes, we did have to get it approved by the commission, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have right now.
I have just one small area of questioning, Mr. Gilbert. Thank you first so much for being here today. We appreciate hearing from you all and the work that you all are doing to address the issues. I know these are not easy issues. The only question I've got is, in general, how do you as board chair and the board generally supervise staff? And by that I mean, how do you make sure that staff's doing everything they're supposed to be doing, like filing reports with the PSC and addressing issues on the day-to-day?
Well, like I said, we meet once a month and we communicate more often than if necessary. But we sit down every month and all of us talk at that meeting about any issues like that.
Okay, do you all ever ask and do spot checks of monthly reports that have to be filed with the PSC, like the water report, anything like that?
No, we do not.
I know that that's the failure to file some of that stuff is how we got here. It might be good on an ongoing basis, especially now that you are having some, a turnover in the manager spot, that at least maybe for a while, that might be a good thing to do, just to make sure that we're all moving forward in a good, productive manner. But otherwise, I do commend you all for working hard to address the water loss issue that you've got, and we know you're working hard. So that's it.
Yes, we will be doing that. Like I say, even last month, we discussed with you, and we'd like to see next month a little bit more reporting on. So, yes, we are looking into, and there is going to be a few changes.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Mr. Willis, do you have any redirect?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir, for being here. You're excused from the testifying chair. Mr. Willis, do you have any other witnesses?
I do not.
Okay. Ms. Koenig, do you have any witnesses you'd like to call?
Mr. Willis, would it be possible for Ms. Kitchen to testify? Is she available for a few
She's
questions?
here, she's not been prepped to testify, but she is here and available.
Well, we certainly leave it up to your discretion. Don't want to put her on the spot, but if she is available for a few questions, we'd love to ask that, but I'll just leave it.
Can you give him any general idea of what those might be? So maybe
Right.
we can take a short recess and he can talk to her?
Yes, I mean, we would just like to inquire about what her responsibilities will be as Mr. Willis Gilbert is leaving, and that Mr. Gifford had referred to her taking over some financial responsibilities. We'd just like to have a general sketch of what those will be.
I think she's available to testify to that.
If you need a moment.
Okay, would you like 5 minutes or?
Yes.
Okay, well, why don't we take a recess till 12:15, and then we'll bring her in quickly, and then we can wrap up the hearing. So we'll be back in 5.
Thank you.
We are back on the record, and Mr. Willis, it appears you have Ms. Kitchen.
I do, yes.
Okay, well, Ms. Kitchen, could you please raise your right hand? And let me make sure I get the wording right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Could you please state your full name and address for the record?
Rebecca Kitchen, 5307 South State Highway 7, Grayson, Kentucky.
I guess, Ms. Koenig, you called her, so I'll let you go first.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Kitchen. Thank you for agreeing to testify. Can you just explain how long you've worked for Rattlesnake Ridge?
8 years.
8 years, okay. And have you always been in the capacity of an office manager?
I have not. My title was utility clerk.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
My title was utility clerk.
Okay. Can you
I'm
just,
more or less,
oh, go ahead.
sorry.
Could you describe what your duties will be after February 1st, 2022?
Mostly financial. I'll make sure that bills are paid, employees are paid. I'll work with David as far as office management, make sure everything's running smoothly there. And work with the board, give them reports that they need.
Okay, will you be the interface between the utility and the accountant?
I do work with Styles, yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Gifford said he would now be responsible for filing the annual report. Will some of your duties be working with him to,
Yes, we are
Developer?
working together, yes.
okay. And so will you give recommendations as far as, you know, whether the rates are sufficient or if you are seeing any financial trouble? Is that part of your responsibility?
I think me and David combined, well, that will be a lot of it. I work directly with Styles as of right now as far as implementing time and the vendors. But David is in there with me, making sure that transfer of money is correct, making sure we're paying the vendors that need paid.
Okay.
It'll be a joint.
Okay, and so that, is that, the only internal control as far as like duplication? Are you two the only ones that are handling money as far as what comes in and what goes out?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have, job descriptions at Rattlesnake Ridge written down anywhere?
We have just started with a policy and procedure. We're going to get a manual started. Actually, we started on this week.
Okay.
Also working with Styles as far as the budget as well. I've never seen a budget. So I am working on with that. I've contacted them this week about that.
Okay, so a yearly budget,
Annually budget, yes.
annual budget, and then, what about a capital improvement plan or, infrastructure plan?
I have not worked on that yet, but it does need to be done, yes.
It's in the works, okay. So were you involved at all in the planning for the Phase 12 project?
No,
Okay, and would you know at all how those finances were assessed when it was being developed?
no, I would not.
Okay. All right, and so, you said that you've never seen a budget, so that's not something that is prepared for the monthly meetings for the board. Is that correct?
I'm sure maybe it was, but I've never, as far as moving forward, I don't know how a budget was put into place.
Okay,
So I contacted Styles. our CPA as far as working on that budget.
Okay, okay. And, so when did, Mr. Willis Gilbert, did he advise you as far as any training? And when did that start and when did that stop?
I've been doing time and paying vendors whenever he was off over the past few years.
Okay.
I've been doing that whenever he was out. I would step in and do that. As far as the takeover, that's only happened within the past month or so.
Okay, okay. And what's your education background and your work history? Do you have previous work experience in accounting or financial bill pays and things like that?
Financially, no.
Okay. And do you have your education history?
Yes, I have 12 years of high school and I have 23 college credits.
Okay, okay. Was that in business or,
No, I went to UK School of Dentistry. My first job was working for a dentist.
okay, okay. Well, thank you so much for your information and for being willing to jump in, and I'll pass on to Mr. Willis now.
Mr. Willis, do you have any questions?
Just a couple. With the change in management, will there be a division and delegation of duties and obligations?
I'll try it again.
Okay, so basically you will be going over the finances and reporting to David, correct?
Yeah.
So if David's unavailable or has an illness, there will be no growing pains or anything. You'll be able to step right in and take over the finances temporarily.
Yes, I really believe I'll be the one actually, unless I'm wrong. I believe I'll be the one doing mostly as far as the financial part of it.
Do you believe with the change in management that there will be improved communication as far as who knows what their job duties are and as far as the policy and procedure manual?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Will there be more checks and balances, more people looking over other people's work, so on and so forth?
Yes, and the board will be more involved as well.
Okay, so the board will be more involved with monthly reports and
Yes,
budgets?
yes.
One of the issues that were discussed in the 19-41 case were late payments and cutoffs. Have you started to implement a new policy or developed a new policy for that?
Actually, we have. With the board, we have discussed different things, and it's actually just knowing what is in place in our tariffs and sticking to it. Yes, we have.
And have you began to review all the tariffs and prepare yourself to discuss each one individually with the board, make any necessary changes?
We actually done that at our last board meeting.
Is there anything I didn't ask that you would like to tell the commission or staff?
I really just think moving forward, it's gonna be a good thing. Communication, I think, was lacking. I think everybody being a team player, I think there was too many divisions maybe. I don't wanna say divisions, but I think everyone working together is gonna see a progress in the company. I think we're on a good road.
All right, great. No further questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Butler, do you have any questions?
I don't know if this is a question or more of a comment, but as you start pulling together your different HR policies and manuals and what have you, I would suggest you reach out to Kentucky Rural Water, because they may be able to help you so you're not recreating a wheel.
I agree.
Okay, and that's it. Thank you.
And I don't have anything. Thank you so much for being willing to jump in here today and answer our questions. We appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you.
Anything further, Ms. Connick?
Nothing further.
Okay. You're free to go. Thank you so much. Any further witnesses, Ms. Connick?
Staff has no further witnesses.
Okay. Well, that appears to be all of our testimony. I know we had the one exhibit, the map. I didn't see anything else introduced, but that will be admitted for the record. If there was anything else, please let me know now. And I certainly didn't see anything. Are there any other motions now that we're done with the end of the hearing?
Done on behalf of the district.
Okay. Your Honor, it was just the matter of Mr. Willis Gilbert not appearing, but staff has no objection after the testimony that's been given. So we have no further need to pursue that unless the commission
Okay.
would like to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I think, given what we've heard today, I think we're fine to move forward and close the hearing and talk about any outstanding requests for information or any requests for any post-hearing data requests.
We do have a few follow-up questions. I guess staff is concerned because we don't have any indication of when a rate case would be to follow up. And so there's not necessarily any contact with the utility after this. So there's no other opportunity for us to ask these questions. So we would like to kind of to have a few post-hearing data requests. And also just state that staff is available for guidance as far as going forward. Mr. Gifford and Ms. Kitchen discussed having better communication with the commission, and so we certainly just want to reiterate that staff is available for guidance, but just have a few post-hearing data requests that we'd like to submit to the utility.
Okay. When do you think you could have those prepared to submit?
Trying to find I believe we could have those by the 18th, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, that's fine from my perspective. If you get post-hearing requests, Mr. Willis, by the 18th, when would you like to have responses? Understanding that you don't know what those requests are yet, so
Whatever standard with the commission.
usually I'd say, a good 2 weeks would be standard, and if something comes up and you need to ask for an extension, you're certainly able to move for that. We'll enter a post-hearing procedural schedule that'll set all of this out. So if you get them, and either because of staff absences, I know COVID is bad right now, or just, things happen, or it's just simply too much information, you can come back and ask for an extension.
Thank you.
And let me get the calendar here.
Your Honor, I would just add, staff is under no time constraints in this case, so we are more than willing to extend that if you wish for 3 weeks, just to give them the most amount of time.
Okay. Am I right that the 18th is a Saturday? Am I looking at the wrong calendar?
I think so, because I'm looking at it
You
as
gotta
a
look at that
Tuesday.
calendar, it doesn't start with Sunday.
Oh, there we go.
It's the work week first.
Okay. Okay. Then why don't we say, let me look at it here, because that written calendar there is confusing me. It's awful to admit. Do we want to say February 8th then for responses?
That's fine with us.
And then if any party wants to submit a brief, why don't we set that for February 15th? And again, that can shift out. And a brief is not mandatory, but we do want to give you the opportunity to do that. we can shift that out to if we end up having to shift the response date from the 8th. Is there anything else we need to take up today? Anything
No.
from you, Ms. Koenig? Okay, with that, I believe we can be adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you all.